5 years ago, Southwest began their newest adventure with their ETOPS rated 737s across the Pacific Ocean to Hawaii. We've been to Hawaii a number of times with this channel, but never with Southwest. Not only do we get to test that out today, but on their longest route in their system from California's state capital and home of the gold rush, Sacramento, California, out to Honolulu, Hawaii. Southwest is one of roughly 8 airlines that calls Terminal B home in Sacramento. Their check-in is almost entirely self-check-in kiosks, and the line for them moves quickly. I, however, have a Business Select tier ticket, meaning that I could use the priority lane. Business Select, by the way, doesn't mean business class per se, but instead just comes with some extra perks since all the seats are the exact same on Southwest. These perks, for example, include refundable tickets, priority boarding, free in-flight Wi-Fi, extra points earned per dollar spent, and not only do we get our boarding pass, but we get a drink coupon as well for a premium beverage on board. Up the escalator off to the gate because Terminal B here is a bit strange. The gates aren't directly connected to the ticketing area. Instead, we take the train out to the hub of gates, which is also where security is located. It's not the only airport with the train connecting check-in and the gates, Orlando for example. It's just strange to have the security checkpoint after the short ride on the train. Welcome to Terminal B in Sacramento with 20 gates and a bit newer than Terminal A. With plenty of shops and restaurants, I would typically get some snacks before a flight on Southwest since there isn't any meals, only some snack mix. On their flights to Hawaii, however, they have a more legit food option. I didn't know what it was yet, but it gave me hope, so I guess we'll wait till we're on board to eat. B18 is our gate to Honolulu from the wing of gates that's basically all Southwest, with boarding beginning in about 20 minutes. Southwest paint scheme is also iconic. I heard once that it was based on the cheapest colors available, but regardless, it's always been one of the more unique and recognizable liveries as they've been able to stray from the plain white look with the desert gold scheme originally, until 2001 when they switched to canyon blue in a complete contrasted move, including the interior, and finally in 2014 they rolled out the heart livery that we see now, which is the first time Southwest has appeared on the fuselage instead of the tail, and with a heart on the previously empty belly of the airplane. Southwest boarding is a hot topic at the moment with major changes on the way, and we will get into that shortly. For now though, and not for much longer, Southwest has one of the stranger boarding positions. Essentially, when check-in opens, you get a boarding position assigned to you in the order you check in. Being Business Select, I'm guaranteed position A1 through 15. You can also purchase an A1 through 15 position at the airport for $40, which is handy if you miss your check-in time and end up in the C group. Around the airport at each Southwest gate, you see these posts organizing numbers 1 through 30 on one side and 31 through 60 on the other. That way you can organize yourself by boarding position in a single file line to get on the plane to pick seats in order. With the alarm set on my phone leading to my timely check-in, I was given the A1 boarding position for the first time, and probably last time, in my life. I'll get to board first after those that need extra time getting down the jet bridge. Welcome on board the all-economy cabin of Southwest Airlines 737, which is the only aircraft type they fly, even if they do have a few variations of the 737. With no premium cabin, every seat is the same, although I've found the bulkhead seats have a bit more space, so I'm using my A1 boarding position to take my bulkhead window seat. The seats are fairly normal economy seats with adjustable headrests and average width. There's little armrest, but it honestly just dug into my elbow a little bit. There's also a couple windows, but each row's got at least one. In front, Southwest is middle of the pack in terms of legroom, but the bulkhead does have a bit more space, although it might be more knee space than foot space. The only drawback being that we've got to have all bags up in the bins for takeoff and landing. Between the seats, in most cases, is an identical armrest, but in the first row, the tray table is kept in there so it looks a little bit different, and the tray table comes out of there as opposed to folding out from the seat in front of you. It does have a button to control the seat recline. Now, Southwest has never had red eyes, so sleep has never been all that mandatory, but with new red eyes and longer flights, the recline may not be enough for a good night's sleep as compared to other carriers' economy. Below the armrest, by the way, is the charging outlets. I warn you that these are only in a fraction of the aircraft at the moment, but there is a USB A and C charging port, and there's 3 per row so you don't have to fight over them. And lastly is the overhead individual air vents at each seat, a given on these narrow-body aircraft. Most airlines use seating to make some extra cash, charging to reserve a seat, or paying for extra legroom. On Southwest, however, all seats are created equal. They've long touted that all their customers are equals, refusing to add any premium spaces in the airport or on board. Since the 70s, Southwest has had an open seating policy, which the famous Herb Kelleher said resembled church pews, taking whatever seat happens to be available, and on a first-come, first-served basis. They eventually added groups A, B, and C, and later added numbers 1 through 60 within each group to organize the boarding a bit more, your boarding number being based on when you check in. Check-in opens 24 hours before departure, and the sooner you check in, the earlier your boarding number, which sucks if you're in the middle of a workday. You can then purchase a spot in A1 through 15 or early bird check-in, which doesn't guarantee A1 through 15, but at least ahead of everyone checking in 24 hours in advance. This has been unusual since it debuted in the 70s, but they aren't the only ones to ever do it. EasyJet, for example, had a similar practice until 2012. It's just a bummer since in most cases I enjoy rocking up to the plane during the final boarding group and getting right on before they shut the doors, unless I have a carry-on. But that doesn't really work on Southwest unless you want a middle seat in the back of the plane. This strategy does, however, have perks like decreasing boarding times, which is important for their point-to-point flying, keeping the aircraft flying as much as possible since airplanes don't make money on the ground. Due to pressure from investors, Southwest was recently forced to re-strategize, however. Studies found that 80% of customers preferred assigned seating, and therefore Southwest announced that they'd be parting with their open seating officially. In 2006, they actually tested this on 200 flights out of San Diego and San Antonio, but Southwest's Allegiant customer base spoke out against this test. Since then, though, aside from financial underperformance, Southwest has stated the new assigned seating was triggered by a few things. First off, to reduce the stress of checking in 24 hours prior, since even 15 minutes late, and you'll be in the B's or C's, and pretty much every C person gets a middle seat. People also had issues with people blocking off seats for friends or family in seats they wanted. People also had been requesting wheelchairs just for the priority boarding. In addition to the assigned seating, they'll also be making the front third of the aircraft extra legroom seating, with the rest remaining how it is now, making it the first time that not every seat has been exactly the same. This doesn't mean everything is changing, as they still seem to be sticking with their liberal 2 free check bags and no change or cancellation fees. Southwest used to be all short hops where the exact seat wasn't as important, but now that they've got Transcon and Hawaii flights over 5 hours, and people prefer more predictability with those. Southwest is just hoping that the loyalists will go with it to save their recent financial woes. There is a menu in the seatback pocket. Typically, on all Southwest flights, passengers get a free soft drink and small bag of snack mix. On select days of the year like 4th of July and Halloween, passengers can get a free alcoholic beverage. You'll also see some extra selections that are for the Hawaii flights only, but still no mention of the food. About an hour after departure, they came through the aisle with a giant cardboard box full of snack boxes. So there's our answer. We get a cheese spread and crackers, fruit snacks, and that signature little bag of snack mix. I will say that I've flown economy to Hawaii now on Virgin America, United, Hawaiian, and Delta, and in all cases we were given more of a meal with some sort of sandwich, but I guess this will make do for now. I was, however, able to use my drink voucher for my business select ticket to get one of the special Kona Brewing Big Wave Golden Ales, only available on the Hawaii flights and free with these vouchers, although it was tough to go against the Dr. Pepper. Southwest does have in-flight entertainment, it's just on your device. A couple things to discuss with that. First off, you can connect to their Wi-Fi, which takes you to their portal. The pricing's the same as United with $8 for the full flight. That is, unless you're the top of their status level or holding a business select ticket. Then you can enter your confirmation code and get free Wi-Fi for the full flight. Even if it's a bit spotty over the ocean on these flights, it's nice to have. Also on that portal, even if you don't purchase Wi-Fi, there is loads of entertainment. There's a whole selection of movies, TV shows, music, and even live TV. The only issue I've got with any airline that uses personal device entertainment is the lack of charging ports. Southwest fixes this, kinda. I like using my laptop for entertainment since it's a bigger screen, and then I can use my phone on Wi-Fi for work or Instagram. The only issue is that there aren't any charging ports that can keep a laptop charged. And on all but 18 aircraft, there aren't any charging ports at all. One of the weirder things is that Southwest's IATA code is WN. So why not SW, which seems to make the most sense? Urban legend states it's because Southwest's founder was a fan of Willie Nelson, but that's not quite it. In actuality, when they were picking their code, SW was already taken by Air Namibia, so they ended up with WN simply because it was available at the time. They did try to purchase the SW code from Air Namibia in the 80s, but they demanded a comical amount of money. They tried again in the 90s, got the same response, so they decided to drop it altogether and embrace the WN code. After all, it's not the only weird code out there. Spirit is NK, JetBlue is B6, and that's just in the US. A little over an hour from arrival, we were given another little snack. Each passenger was given a drink and these brownie bites. I had used my drink coupon already, so I used this as an opportunity to redeem myself and get my, albeit flat, Dr. Pepper. We were also given these arrival forms. It's not full-on immigration, but since Hawaii is a set of islands separate from the mainland, they still want to keep any agriculture and pests separated, so we don't bring an invasive species out to the islands or vice versa. In the late 60s, Southwest was originally founded as an intrastate airline within Texas, allowing them to bypass some tight federal regulations since they had no interstate commerce, something inspired by PSA, an airline doing a similar thing in California. They were largely shut down by larger carriers in the area, so they had to get crafty to make a profit, such as selling cheap off-peak fares, reducing the aircraft count and instituting their famous 10-minute turns, and moving to the other Houston airport, closer to downtown, strengthening the draw for business travelers on the Dallas to Houston flagship route. In 1974, Dallas-Fort Worth Airport opened, and the cities wanted to move all airline services there. Southwest, however, wanted to keep their location at Dallas Love Field, and pulled it off since it didn't exist when the original DFW agreement was made. It also was regulated by a separate organization than the one pushing for the creation of DFW. Love Field also couldn't discriminate users of their airport since they took federal grants, so Southwest live on at Dallas Love. Deregulation in the later 70s was the best thing that could have ever happened to them. It allowed the airline to pick whatever routes they wanted at whatever prices, allowing Southwest to finally grow outside of Texas, which is perfect since they had pretty much exhausted their routes within Texas. Traffic quadrupled within 6 years of the deregulation and doubled from that only 5 years later. In the 80s, Southwest was the launch customer of the 737-300 and grew to be the biggest carrier of the type, cementing their all-737 fleet. In the 2000s, they ended interline and codeshare partnerships with carriers like Icelandair and Volaris, and acquired AirTran Airways, giving them more East Coast-focused cities and routes. They finally launched international services in 2014 with Jamaica and the Bahamas, followed with more in the years to come. The COVID era was also a bit different for Southwest. They weren't affected nearly as bad as most carriers, considering the percentage of their network that's domestic routes. Recently, Southwest has faced some struggles. In a segment from Maxonomics and Morning Brew, stats showed that you could buy up just about all of Southwest's stock and company for the same cost of all of their aircraft combined. Southwest used to be the cheapest way to fly with their patented wanna-get-away fares, but in recent days those fares have increased, now costing the same as America's legacy carriers, more on certain routes. Now, for people who really want to fly for cheap, they've got the ultra-low-cost carriers like Frontier, Allegiant, and Spirit for far cheaper, squeezing one of Southwest's main customer bases out, flying an extra 18 million passengers last year compared to Southwest. You can say all the bad things you want about Spirit and Frontier, but they're winning at the moment. Southwest really only remains the cheapest option if you're traveling with a group and actually taking advantage of free check bags. It also doesn't help that Southwest flights don't show up in search engines until very recently when they were added to Google Flights. Most people want to look in one place and compare all available options, and Southwest shot themselves in the foot by not being a part of that. Last year, Southwest made $3.40 per passenger. Just 5 years ago, however, it was $17. As they add aircraft, they've just been struggling to fill them on a good chunk of routes. Last year, they had the lowest load factor of America's main carriers. They also lack seatback entertainment, and at the beginning of this year, only 17 of their aircraft had charging outlets, which is driving away millennials and Gen Z, generations that are huge travelers and love their perks, even if it costs a bit more. This is why Delta's revenue last year, half of it came from purchases on top of the original ticket price. Southwest was only chosen by 15% of millennials and Gen Z, the lowest in the US. Honolulu has sold out more flights than any other airport in the US. This is why Southwest decided to capture part of the market in 2019, losing $1 billion and assigning 6% of its fleet to the region in order to do so, now with 43,000 flights to and within the islands annually. Southwest is also the only carrier with inter-island and mainland flights besides Hawaiian, allowing passengers more options once they land in paradise. Southwest has been selling tickets below cost to corner their market share, and originally people were pleased to have the competition, especially inter-island, although locals are now worried that they'll price out Hawaiian, who has a far smaller network and less money in the bank, forcing the recent Hawaiian-Alaska merger talks in order to remain competitive. Low-cost carriers have also been on a bit of a premium hype recently. Spirit added the big front seat, which is basically a domestic first-class hard product that I covered earlier this year. Frontier also announced recently that they're planning a more European-style business class product. And now, with the boarding changes at Southwest, we also see the extra legroom seats, which aren't as impressive but are, in my opinion, more surprising. For years, airlines have unbundled items to charge passengers less base fare, but more in the end. But now, this seems to be reversing. I am excited to see some change in Southwest, which has been largely in their legacy ways since their early days. This isn't just seen in the seating, but they also announced their first ever red eyes. It was rumored that the older Southwest booking system struggled with bookings that carried into the following day, although, if true, at least it allowed them to make it through the recent Y2K that destroyed other airlines. Now they've announced red eyes from Vegas and LA with Hawaii to follow. Honestly, I've never been a huge fan of Southwest. I will admit that their route network is super convenient for most of my trips, and they typically have great on-time performance. But they lack some amenities that I'd like to see, and they add some unnecessary stress to the whole experience. It works for short flights, but for these flights over 5 hours especially, it kinda sucks not having seatback entertainment. I know the alternative is to use my computer, but there isn't a plug for that, so the battery gets pretty low, even if fully charged once you get on board. I also was pleasantly surprised to have more than just the snack mix, but all other carriers I've flown to Hawaii, even in economy, come with at least a sandwich and a snack. The snack we got just lacked real sustenance. I have my opinions on the check-in and boarding processes, but it seems that I wasn't alone and those are being fixed now. This will put Southwest's onboard product on par with American Airlines' domestic product, in my opinion. Sure, Southwest will still lack a true business class, but American also has a ton of fees that Southwest waives. I do know that Southwest has strong followers. There are people that swear by it, just not my cup of tea, especially on these Hawaii flights. It was kind of fun that the first officer was actually someone I went to college with and was friends with one of my flight instructors back then. So, in case she comes across this video, what's up, Bridget? What do you think, though? Have you flown with Southwest? Will you fly with them with these new changes? Let me know. And until next Sunday, safe travels. I'll see y'all next time.